Boom. We are live Friday evening. I hope everyone's staying safe. Everyone in Ontario, you are now locked in. You are not going anywhere, which is a pretty interesting development. So, excuse me, we have a great one tonight, guys. Something brand new, something we haven't talked about, a brand new segment in beer. I'm amped. So, this is episode 58. I'm going to get this going. What's good, y'all? This is C Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 58 of Beer and Other Shit, the podcast, Adjunct series, Quarantine Edition. This evening, guys, we have something super interesting, something we haven't covered here on BAOS before. But just before we get to it, just want to shout out our sponsors. Huge shouts to Dr. Nick's Amazing Man Stuff. Once again, sponsoring the podcast. These guys are based out of Massachusetts. Look at that. And they do a whole bunch of products for people with beard on their face or hair on their faces. They do a bunch of different stuff, but this evening I just want to talk about this one. Their beard sanitizer, they call it Shelter in Face, which is friggin' hilarious. So basically, on top of they do beard oils and balms as well, which I have been using every day since January, and I am not a beard product type of person. This is fascinating, particularly in a time when we're all sanitizing everything. I was told when Nick was on the podcast, literally, say you're out and about in your mask, and if you have a vehicle, you jump in the car, and he said, you get this, and you spray your whole face with it, including the mask, because it sanitizes your mask, it sanitizes your face, and then when you wipe it into your beard, you're kind of sanitizing your hands at the same time. The two flavors they have are key lime and blood orange, so it's bright citrus, and he said that the aromatherapy side of it, like bright citrus, like helps you sort of feel awake and alert. I really enjoy using them. It's just kind of like a nice mist on your face. So antiviral. This is what I was saying, and everything is all made in America. There's no like cheap fragrance oils or anything like that. It's all like essential oils, and like he was telling me the like for like an ounce bottle, they're like $150 of the type of essential oils that they use. So it's not cheap, but the product is super quality. I'm genuinely enjoying it. If you are interested in this or any other beard products, I also have, speaking of beer, they have beard beer, IPA and stout, scented beard oils, which is super fire. They have a link in the description with a discount code. Why can't I talk tonight? A discount code BAOS21 is Dr. Nick's, DOCTORNICKS.com. Check them out. Honestly, man, I've been super stoked using these, so please do yourself a favor. Now, with that in mind, this evening, I connected with these gentlemen probably a couple months back after being introduced to the beer by my friend Craig at Craft Beer & Co., who got me the first one, and I was super impressed with the beer itself, but also I was fascinated with this new category of functional beer. So the boys are going to tell us all about it. We got the fellas from Rally Brew Co. in Ontario with us tonight, boys. Welcome. How you guys doing?
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having us.
Matt, genuine pleasure. Thank you guys for taking the time. I am genuinely excited for this conversation because like I was telling you guys off air that I don't know much about this whole new kind of world of functional beer. I've heard little, bits and pieces of chatter about it, but you guys are the first time I've been able to, really sit down with somebody and get the full lowdown. So I appreciate your time, and we're going to get maybe sciencey tonight, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Just a little bit. So in order to get sciencey, we're going to need to be refreshed. And we are going to kick off with your first beer, the Golden Ale. And I know you've got new canned artwork now. Which is that the new one you have there?
We do. We've got one to show off here.
Nice.
Kind of the new design, a little bit cleaner, a little bit brighter.
Love it.
So yeah, I'm super excited about that, and kind of the next evolution, kind of a new chapter here.
Very cool, man. Do you want to take the photo? We take the photos as we go, make sure we document things, or do you want me to give it to you?
No.
No. So tell us about this beer, guys. So this is a 4.9% Golden Ale, unfiltered, so it's got a really nice kind of like hazy hue about it.
Yep. Yeah, so this is our flagship, Craig. This is a Golden Ale. The whole goal with this beer is that we wanted it to be rich in electrolytes. That's that functional element that I think we're going to dive into a little bit later.
Yeah.
So we're brewing with blackcurrant and Newfoundland sea salts. That's actually kind of really unique part about the beer that's unique to our story. when we got into this journey, we were going down the path of functional beer, really passionate about changing what a beer could be for us. And, one of the early roadblocks we had when we were pitching the LCBO is that, pretty far down the process, we actually, as we schooled ourselves a little bit on the regulations, it is illegal to fortify an alcoholic beverage with vitamins or minerals. So the initial idea of, brewing your favorite pale ale and, fortifying it with electrolytes, that was kind of out of the window, kind of, before we even got the plane off the ground kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But really happy with how it turned out. And so what you can do is you can brew beer with unique ingredients, superfoods, all that kind of stuff to accomplish, a nutritional composition or makeup how you desired. Obviously, it gets a little bit trickier, and now you're pulling in different flavor profiles. And so, you got a lot more there, a lot more experimentation. But that's kind of what brings the unique kind of, story to the beer. Yeah.
I love it. It's super interesting. So, like, if we're going through brief tasting notes, like, I'm definitely getting, like, it's blackcurrant, you were saying, with a bit of the salt on there. I feel like the blackcurrant is slightly coming through. I mean, it's not over, obviously it hasn't changed the color too much or anything, but it's definitely, there's like a malty, bready, but touch more fruity than the average golden ale on the nose. Am I accurate?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. And, we didn't brew this beer to be a fruit beer. It wasn't brewed to be fruit forward. It was mainly brewed and using kind of that blackcurrant to extract the magnesium, the calcium, and the zinc out of the fruit. So that was kind of the main goal. We wanted to achieve, that electrolytic makeup of the beer rather than create a funky fruit forward beer right off the bat.
And the blackcurrant just takes a little bit of that bitterness from the target hops that we use, just to sort of make it a little bit more round and balanced. So for those who aren't, total hop heads, this is a super crushable, refreshing beer.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's really smooth, like super, super smooth. I don't know if I'm detecting any of the salt or anything in there. I imagine it's not something that's like face kind of punching or anything. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it kind of hits you in different ways, to be totally honest. I mean, this beer, we've tested it in all types of situations, and honestly, after a big sweat, whether it's riding, running, kiting, whatever it is, couch to 5K, depending on sort of where you are and sort of what you're sort of recovering from, you can definitely taste different flavors of the beer, and especially after you go for that sweat, the salt comes through, and it's just super quick. So much so that even when we drink it, we're like, okay, it's tasting this way one time, and then if you go out and get your sweat on, whatever it may be, it has a totally different taste profile.
Why is that? Yeah, that's crazy. That's cool. What's the deal?
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah,
your body's craving sodium and salts after you work out. I mean, typically when you're trying to hydrate, people say water. Of course, water is key to staying hydrated. But if you are going out on those long, epic adventures, that we've found ourselves out on before, it's really actually salt that your body's, really crying out for. And the salt sort of is what gets absorbed by your body. And really, when you're drinking this brew after, a run or a ride, whatever it might be, that's when then you'll feel that salt coming through.
As far as, does it taste change, or it's more like just how your body feels, and because it's absorbing different things, because it's requiring different things?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I find that it does change. I don't know if it's changing the taste buds, but the fact that your body's craving that salt, it just does come through. And sometimes when I'm just drinking this beer, if I am on the couch, and sometimes we do use the slogan "sweat or no sweat." It's a great beer to have. At the end of a long day of work, if you've been crushing it on the computer. But, I find after that occasion, when you're sweaty and your body's craving salt, you've sweat out a bunch of, the electrolytes. I don't know if you've ever tasted your sweat, but it's super salty. It just, for some reason, I find the beer is kind of, I can't think of the word, but it like changes based on those occasions. And Craig, our next, our re-podcast, we got to get a sweat on first.
Right, we should have. Yes, maybe go for a bike ride or something and come back and be panting for an hour. I'm here for it. Yeah, I really want to try it. I really want to try the post. I wanted to talk to you boys first before I did the, workout and then crash the beer, because I kind of want to understand it, because it's just such a new thing and it's genuinely fascinating. Shouts to Beer and a Bozo, by the way. Said, looks stellar. It is, my man. I feel like I'm getting used to. This was my first beer of the night, and I always find that I don't know about you boys, but my palate is like extra sensitive, and things taste more bitter than they really are. And then the more I drink, the more comfortable I get with it. And then now I'm at the point where, because at first I was like, oh, wow, this is bitter. And then now I'm like, oh no, it's not really at all. It's mellowed out on my palate, but that's just me being weird.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, it's super smooth. I like it. Like, it's just an interesting twist on a golden ale, which I enjoy, and I like, almost feel, because it's like unfiltered, that sort of, opaqueness almost makes it feel like thicker and heartier, I guess. Maybe just like the way
that was also, and that's been pretty central to our story since day one. It's unfiltered. My background in beer, once you filter beer, you lose a lot of the good nutrition that's naturally in there, whether it's complex B vitamins, some of the, particles that might be in beer naturally through yeast. Some of that stuff can be rich in potassium as well, and other kind of great stuff for your gut. And, overall, I think beer, consumed in moderation is super healthy. Obviously, once you get down into like your Coors Lights, they're heavily filtered. I think you're pretty much just drinking, glorified corn water or something. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of part of the story. Is we want it to be unfiltered. We want the ingredients to come through as naturally as possible. And we wanted to create a great crushable beer, but we wanted to make sure that it had those functional elements, built into it.
Love it. I love it. So on that note, let's get your both your individual beer stories, like how you both got into beer, and then how Rally came to be. And then maybe after that, we'll go more into like the actual functional stuff. But I definitely want to hear how it all happened, man. Talk to me, boys.
Yeah, so it could be a long story. There's probably a few versions of it, Craig. But for me, been a drinker of beer for many years, probably a couple of years more than maybe legally should have. So I've been passionate about craft beer. I was early adopter of wanting to taste new flavors, try new styles of beer. Very fortunate, I got to go. Spencer and I both actually went to university overseas in Scotland. Got the chance to drink a ton of different real ales over there. Got to travel Europe, try a bunch of different products. And when I graduated university and I came home, that's when I, theoretically I was going to look for a job, try and get my first job, trying to figure out what a career was. What I was doing in the meantime, though, was I learned how to homebrew. So I started homebrewing, got more and more into it, from like, doing a Mr. Beer where, you take the 2-liter pop bottle and you drop the yeast in it, slowly graduated my way up to doing, all grain brewing, kind of out on a propane fueled kind of burner.
Nice.
And ended up, my first job at a school was I ended up landing a job at a craft brewery, kind of a very small 90s, one of the earliest microbreweries in Ontario, called Trafalgar Ales and Meads.
Oh, yeah.
And I apprenticed there.
Nice.
So that was my first job. And that was really about just peeling back the curtain on something that I was interested in, kind of feeding that curiosity and get a chance to learn about all aspects of the business. It was a family-run business. Got to see the realities of how a brewery works, how you make beer, all the packaging, and got a little bit of a glimpse into, working with the LCBO and doing the logistics game there as well. So I ended up working that job for about a year, did little stints at other breweries in kind of my hometown, like Cameron's Brewing, just mainly kind of on the event side, just kind of getting your face out there into the industry. And it was a really, really great time. It was right when like craft beer was really going on that like hockey stick where, it felt like there was a new brewery opening every weekend.
Yeah.
And, ultimately I was just a bit too young to try to do something on my own at that point. And, I was making minimum wage. And so at some certain point you start looking at your student loans and like, okay. And I ended up actually exiting the beer industry and spent, the bulk of my career since then, that was 2010, in kind of the tech software industry.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. my my beer history isn't as storied as Alan's per se, but after graduating from school overseas, I worked down in London in hospitality. So I ran restaurants, and I was in and around the drink scene for quite some time. And when I moved back to Canada, probably 2.5 years ago, I moved to a small town 2 hours north of Toronto called Thornbury.
Mhm.
And that's kind of, I opened a restaurant up here and was, on my own entrepreneurial journey while Al was, figuring some sort of going on with his other career outside of beer. And I'll let him tell this, but it all kind of came together in this apartment that we're sitting in right now,
Right.
just on that couch there, where he was passing through on a pretty epic bike journey. I'll let him sort of, go further into detail on that, but that's kind of where, Rally was sort of kind of just put one foot in front of the other and started ticking off the boxes and going down that road of incorporating the business and then getting the liquor license and HST numbers and all of these, very sort of nuanced things that you have to do to get a business off the ground. And that's kind of, the rest was history.
Love it. Keep going. Talk to me. Tell me how the epic bike ride and the couch.
Yeah. All right. Let's get right into the
please
into the origin story here. So that's sort of the, I guess, if you call it the beer resume. I don't know if it's that kind of impressive or anything, but basically there's just always been a passion for beer. Like even when Spencer was opening the restaurant up in Thornbury, he had the building and we were like jamming like over a few late nights, like, hey, can we do a beer concept here? Can we pull it off? Ultimately, for better or for worse, we didn't end up doing it. We didn't have like kind of the fully flushed out, 360 degree concept. We just were like, we love beer. We like drinking beer. It's a great way to bring people together. I think we're big believers in it as like, it's just a great kind of cultural beverage.
But we didn't have that hook.
Social lubricant.
Yeah. We were always trying to find out, how were we going to be different? What was what was going to be our value prop to our, new customers in terms of what our business or beer would be.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, the other thing that I think is central to the Rally story that's probably unique from, most buddies that go and start a brewery is, we're kind of athletes. We got into sports. We're big into like alternative sports. So be it trail running, mountain biking, kite surfing, skiing, snowboarding. I mean, Spenny and I had lots of trips doing that. And we also just found, especially as we got a little bit older, those were our favorite beers. Were, après ski after a sick day on the mountains or after crushing a new trail on the bike. And, you've really earned it. And it was about more than maybe just having a few beers and trying the latest IPA kind of thing. It was about, how can we incorporate this occasion and this feeling of accomplishment and adventure that you get by kind of venturing out into the outdoors. And like even our nicknames, we kind of have the same nickname almost. It's like Trails, because we're always going out in the trails. And then if you had a long night, sometimes it was like that was a long trail. And there was a bunch of trips to Vermont that ensued. And, there's a great craft beer scene down there that I think inspired us to a degree, just with its, Vermont's got a, wicked kind of outdoor action adventure sports industry as well. They do go hand in hand, those two things. And then, the fall of 2019, I was doing this bike ride called the Butter Tart 700. So it's about 760 kilometer off-road bike tour through like small town Ontario. And the idea is you basically ride your bike on the Bruce Trail all day. You pass through a couple towns, and the guy who designed the route, he's called out his favorite bakery in each town, and you go eat like 12 butter tarts because you're in such an insane calorie deficit. You've been pedaling for 12 hours. And the second day I was rolling through Thornbury, and I had been thinking about doing a beer, obviously my whole life since leaving the beer industry in 2010. But that bike ride forced me to learn about nutrition. I was reading labels, dropping electrolyte tablets in my water all day long, that kind of thing. And I got really into the stories behind like these Cliff Bar upstarts. And there was a lot of similarities to craft beer actually, and how they do storytelling, brand building, and but at the end of the day, I still wanted to find a pub, grab a beer, and just kind of like, have that moment as well. And yeah, literally was rolling through Thornby and kind of had this idea to try to combine the two. And Spence and I just started jamming on it, that night. And the rest is kind of history, I guess, from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fascinating, and it's great because it's like it ties in all of your passions and stuff, which is super key, so it doesn't take you away from the other stuff. So the idea of functional beer, I imagine it existed at the time, and then you guys, when you probably heard of it, you were like, yo, this is exactly what we want to do. Like, how did that discovery come about?
So for me, had this idea. I was on the bike trip, not a lot of access to internet in any of the spots where the butter tart goes. So it was literally like, it's got to exist. There's got to be a reason why it's not possible. All those sort of, that line of thinking was definitely prevalent in my mind. Like, there's no way that this is going to be doable, or it's going to be you Google it and there's like 500 people trying to do it. And, I was going to get discouraged. Like, it definitely crossed my mind. But we, when we started researching it, we didn't find a lot of people doing it. Nobody in Canada. We did find a handful of people kind of dancing around it in the US at the time. So there's a handful of breweries. Harpoon Brewery has a beer that's sort of touching on electrolytes, Dogfish Head. There's Sufferfest Beer Company that Sierra Nevada bought. There's a few kind of companies that were started by athletes or catering to athletes, or there are now a few, and even more since we've started, that are starting to tout the idea of functional beer, and a few of them specifically with electrolytes as well.
Okay. So when you realized it was possible, it's a thing, it exists, which means the science exists, which means you just really had to figure out how. What was that sort of process like? Like, were you guys able to figure out the, because I imagine when I keep saying science, like, I imagine there's much more to making this type of beer actually functional.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Than just like an average beer that doesn't, as long as it tastes good, right? Like, it's more of that. This must have, and I'm assuming here, like, I don't know jack about this, but I'm assuming there's probably more, like, as far as the process. Like, did you do home brews and like, all right, let's test this out? Like, what was that process like for you guys?
I mean, I think the first iteration of it was we went out and grabbed just magnesium and potassium in sort of powdered form, and literally just added it to a beer that we liked. And Al touched on it prior to, he touched on it sort of earlier on in the conversation. It like completely messed up sort of, even just the carbonation of the beer started going everywhere. And B, we realized that we couldn't, as Al was saying, you can't fortify alcohol with vitamins or minerals. So we had to figure out a way, okay, how do we look at this from a different angle, and how do we extract those properties that we're looking for, in our beer that would be important to us to tell this story through natural ingredients. We started doing some research. One of our advisors is a great brewmaster, and I actually wasn't able to make it down for the first one, but him and Alan, got all of the ingredients and just started kind of going after it on a homebrew kit that we have at Al's house on his garage or on his driveway.
Okay.
And then we just need to sort of build that down and scale up.
Right. So how did you decide on a golden ale for this first beer, and how did you also decide on the specific, the blackcurrants and the salt that you decided to add to this one?
Yeah. So yeah, Craig, it was a long process. Early days, I think we thought we were going to go on the fortify route. And like Spencer said, like, I was rolling around with little Ziploc baggies of white powders, and I was just kind of that guy.
Sprinkling in everything.
After a mountain bike ride, I'm like, I'm just testing something out. I'm just trying to, get to the bottom of something I'm working on.
It's weird eyes. You can get invited back out to those bike rides, by the way.
Like, bring more next time.
So it started pretty honestly. Like I was just like curious. Okay, well, how am I going to figure this out? And I didn't really know.
Right.
At this point, I hadn't homebrewed for probably 7 or 8 years, so I had given away or sold all my equipment. So literally, like within a week or so of getting home from the butter tart, it was just like all over Kijiji, amassing all the stuff, and I got a pretty sweet kind of system set up now, and we use that for all of our pilot beers. And, once we were on the tip that we had to brew with kind of these superfood type ingredients, it was now, okay, how do we find a taste profile and a style of beer that, is going to be palatable? Bananas would be like the common fruit that jumps to mind for people when they think about potassium. But a banana beer, to me, just it's not sound like something I want to consume. Taste-wise, it just didn't ring true to me. So, it started out by buying different types of fruits, tasting them, doing a lot of research in terms of which fruits are rich in what, minerals. We knew that salt was going to be key from day one because we knew like Gozas use sea salt. There was a lot of precedent for using salt, and salt is essentially sodium, which is going to be your most critical electrolyte that you'd lose. So that was kind of the easiest one. And the next was finding kind of the next ingredient that was going to kind of bolster the nutritional value of beer. And
we had to figure out what was that other ingredient going to be that, if it was going to be a fruit, was it going to be something as sweet as like a banana or another type of fruit, or was it going to be something that had a little bit more tartness to it? And we started brewing with blackcurrant, and just because of its tartness but not overly sharpness on it, it kind of just really rounded out everything with the salt in our hops. And we kind of just landed there. It had a great nutritional composition. It's super high in some of the minerals that we were looking to have in our beer.
Interesting. So why a golden ale? I mean, I imagine it was probably a great, it's not a lager, so it doesn't take 6 to 8 weeks. It's a crushable, tasty, low ABV beer that's perfect for after the ride.
Yeah, so definitely day one, we were home brewers, so we knew that, lagering or making a Pilsner was not going to be in the wheelhouse. Didn't have kind of the right setup for that. So we knew we were going to go for an ale. I had been like a pretty heavy IPA drinker, IPA fan for a long time, but all my friends, were always harping me on it about it. And so, after a lot of kind of soul searching, it was like, well, how can we make a beer that's going to be accessible? This was going to be our first beer. We wanted it to be accessible to a lot of people. These sports are already intimidating enough. And so, we didn't then want to make a beer that's, equally as intimidating. We really wanted to, use this brand as a platform to bring more people into these kind of action adventure sports and make it more accessible and, inspire people to, maybe start their, active lifestyle journey.
Right.
So golden ale, we've got the Scottish background in us, we're using a British hop that we love from kind of discovering real ales. It was, we landed on it relatively early, as a beer that resonated with us and with our histories. Spending a lot of time in Scotland. It was, just a nice mix. And again, we call it a golden ale, but it's not really a traditional golden ale because of these ingredients. So whether we should have even called it anything, I'm not 100% sure it was the right move, because there's still that education piece regardless. Some people even get a little bit of sourness, where this is like 10% of the way towards a Goza almost. But yeah, we ultimately did call it a golden ale because the base of it was golden.
Right.
We knew we wanted it to be hazy. We love brewing with oats. We love the mouthfeel that brings. That's sort of the background, I guess.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Yeah, the mouthfeel, I don't know if I mentioned before, was wild, and the head was perfect. It was beautiful, like nice and fluffy, and like it's a very like I said, it's sort of, because of that creaminess, it almost feels heavy, like a meal that you need after a exercise session. Was that intentional too? Having that mouthfeel to really give you that feeling like you're putting something substantial in your body?
I think it was one of those things that I don't think that we necessarily set out for it to be, but it was one of those things as we started down that home brewing process that we realized that having it unfiltered with all of these different ingredients and the oats just really gave it a nice balanced mouthfeel. But at the same time, it's not weighing you down. It is still, pretty light and crisp and just super refreshing.
Okay. So with that said, now we've got the history. That's great. This is super interesting. So I wouldn't mind getting into the fun, since we've been talking about it the whole time. Like, maybe could you guys define this segment of functional beer, what it actually means, what the intention behind a functional beer is supposed to be? What are some of the ingredients that would qualify or characteristics that will qualify a beer to be functional intentionally, I guess, as opposed to you chuck blackcurrants in the beer, it's functional now, which I imagine isn't really the case. Could you just maybe give folks who maybe haven't heard of this before just that kind of one-on-one breakdown?
Yeah, so for me, functional beer, even from day one, we knew that this was a bit of, we're kind of treading into kind of murky territory with functional beer. We always did say from day one, look, this beer has alcohol in it. It's not going to be good for everyone. There are certain people that, they don't drink or they can't drink or what have you. It's one reason why we have a kind of non-alcoholic kind of beer in development in parallel to all this. But, for me, the functional beer it's something that we created for this athlete community that we're a part of. So we're all trail runners on the team. We're all mountain bikers. We're all into skiing, snowboarding, and kind of going out, having fun, having an adventure, getting a sweat on. And for me, functional beer, I talk about a little bit less the actual functional beer as the liquid as I do about Rally as the brand platform to inspire people to go live an active, healthier lifestyle. Definitely, for me, a functional beer needs to be a better for you option. I always had a can of craft beer in my Camelback when I was out mountain biking. That was just already part of the culture of riding a bike or going skiing, is that you're probably crushing, 1 or 2 beers after. So it's got to be better for you. It's got to be, kind of tailor-made for that occasion. So for me, the Golden Ale, it's rich in electrolytes. It's tailor-made for that post-ride, post-ski occasion. When your body is craving electrolytes. Yeah, if you drink a dozen Golden Ales, you're not driving your car home and you're probably not getting hydrated, for the next day. But it is a better for you beverage. It's tailor-made to the occasion. It's made by people in that active community. That's what I think is the real difference maker. And for us, we also talk about functional beers being much more than our flagship and brewed with electrolytes. Trying to throw crazy stuff at the wall and see what sticks. What could a beer be? Can we brew with lion's mane mushrooms? And can we pull out some of these different types of adaptogens and nootropics that, we're starting to learn about and starting to see come out of other non-alcoholic beverages? And can we, in a thoughtful way, brew with those types of ingredients and bring that into the fold? And now we maybe have a functional beer that has something other than electrolytes, other types of functional benefits. So that's been key to our thinking from day one. And then the other big thing for us, why we think Rally is kind of a force for good, is that it's a platform to inspire people to get active, or to inspire people to go on a bigger adventure, or to tell some of these stories of, endurance athletes doing a crazy thing, or, just learning about the planet, getting a deeper connection with, the environment, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so it's on top of the nutrients that would come with the food or the additions, it's just getting people to, you're talking about being active, particularly at a time when a lot of us aren't active and Ontario just shutting shit down. A lot of people can't be active. But the idea is that you're on top of that, the idea is reminding people hey man, you're supposed to move and do some stuff, and here's something that could potentially make you feel nice after.
And celebrate your wins, no matter how small.
Gotcha.
Right? You don't have to be a crazy, ultra runner or cyclist. It's really, as Al said, to just encourage people and inspire people to continue to live a healthier, more active lifestyle. And again, active and healthier is all up to it's all subjective at the end of the day. But we're just trying to be that catalyst for people to, get out and enjoy a beer after whatever it is that they did.
Love it. I love it. That's dope. So then, as far as the ingredients that could qualify a beer to be functional, what sort of things would someone typically find in a beer that would be defined as functional?
I mean, I think right now, at least the trend that's coming out of the U.S. and sort of, where we've had some success, definitely, higher contents of salt.
Okay.
Replenishing the body with those electrolytes like sodium. And again, it's just really, really quenching, especially on a hot day. Something salty. I know it sounds weird, but it's so quenching. It's
right.
like, it really is. And then just trying to find out, other ingredients like blackcurrant that we had picked off in the first one. But as Alan said, we don't think that functional necessarily holds just true to just, the ingredients that are in the beer. It's more of just the entire makeup. So that could be, really just better for you beer, whether it's low calorie, low alcohol, whether it's electrolytes, whether it's no alcohol, adaptogens, nootropics, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Right.
And Craig, the one thing I'll add is that, for us, we brewed with blackcurrant less so because of blackcurrant and more so because we wanted to get, potassium and magnesium into the beer. And, we had a target that we were shooting for on day one. And we had done our calculations with, our brewmasters and some of the people in the lab at the brewery we use to understand how much potassium we were able to successfully extract through the brewing process. And that's where a lot of the kind of innovation came into play because, just because you brew with something that has potassium in it doesn't mean you're going to retain it into the liquid that gets packaged. Right. So we actually we were shooting for I think 180 milligrams and, everything we did told us, yeah, we hit it. But to be honest, early days, we couldn't afford to send the beer to a lab. So we were like, okay, we're going to roll with it. We didn't have a nutritional fact table on the can at the time. We knew it was rich in electrolytes. We didn't have the exact numbers. And then when we could afford to do the lab test, we did it. And, it turns out we actually ended up getting 300 milligrams of potassium into a can of Raleigh, which, that's equivalent to a banana.
No shit. So it actually, it holds through, blackcurrant's in a million different beers, and no one I've ever heard, talk about these other properties that would come into it. So it actually does it in order for the beer to retain those minerals, is there a different process, or it's kind of the same as anything else?
Well, it's that's where a little bit, I guess, of the secret sauce is. If it goes into the full boil, you're probably going to boil away any nutrition. So there's a balance of kind of when and how you add it and kind of in what quantities. But, for us, when we talk about functional beers, I'm more thinking about, to me, I always go to what was the final kind of makeup of the beer rather than, we brewed with all these really cool, crazy superfoods, but we kind of just put it in like a little bit of apple cider vinegar or whatever. And it maybe didn't actually have a, legitimate impact on the beer. For us, what I'm really proud of is that we did, successfully get, as much potassium as a banana into this beer.
Right. Interesting. Okay. That's fascinating. Beer and BAOS are saying, is it contract brewed?
Yeah. So we contract brew it. So we do the recipe development in-house, and then we contract brew. We use a brewery in London, Ontario called Equals. They would be kind of one of the top 2 or 3, contract brewers, at least in Ontario. And they've been a fantastic partner. A lot of benefits, I think, from, the brand's perspective. We don't have the overhead. I'm not a manufacturing expert. And, especially with COVID, 100% of our beer is packaged into cans right now. So, we're getting access to, really sick canning line and kind of all the bells and whistles that far surpass Spence,
we would have been able to
Spenny's
afford.
And I's, pocketbook at the time. It's still, actually. And, so we're proudly contract brewed with Equals right now.
Love it. Now, we had Justin on last year, and I know they do some really good stuff. I know a bunch of breweries that are brewing out of there, and they seem to be doing a phenomenal job. Never heard of even a whisper of a bad word about them. So that's great. I love it.
Yeah, they've been great.
I'd love to hear that. So okay, so I made a couple notes early just so I didn't forget. So the electrolytes you mentioned before, like with the salt and in the goza. So what would differentiate this beer specifically? Say something from like a fruited goza, like if you wanted to compare, like it's got salt and it's got the blackcurrant in it. So one could, if obviously got one of the main differences, as I imagine, is the malt profile that makes it and sort of a golden ale was what you intended. Like what would differentiate it from say like a goza?
Yeah, I think it's that base recipe, the malt profile, the yeast. We weren't going for a sour, super complex flavor profile.
Right.
I think we might have got maybe some people's palate, they do kind of call us a little bit of the way towards a sour, but that wasn't the intention. We were trying to make super crushable beer. Imagine yourself, middle of a heat wave, and you've just finished, the longest bike ride of your life, whether it's 5 kilometers or 150 kilometers, and you need to crush a beer because you're about to potentially pass out. I don't know, because you've got no sodium left in you. I mean, it happens. Like you watch buddies bonk on a hot day because they've sweat and they haven't, put the nutrition in their body. That was what we were going for. So, I think the main difference there is probably something to the yeast and the, malt profile, but it's the whole package. And it was the vision that went into it from the beginning. We weren't trying to make a really sour beer here.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's the literal style differences is probably the main answer. So then the other side of that is what would stop a goza or a fruit, say a blackcurrant goza, what would stop that being considered functional? Aside from potentially, like you said, like the intent behind
there may in fact be other beers that could have a similar nutritional makeup of this beer, 100%.
Okay. Right.
It does come down to, maybe how you market it a little bit. It's also, what is that right flavor for this occasion?
Oh. You boys, you there?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I didn't even look. We had, whatever, it's a long story, but the way that this program works, you have to have interview time added, and I let it run out because it refreshes next week, and I never had that before where it doesn't even come up to warn you. Ridiculous. Either way, it took 2 seconds to get more. So, we were saying that...
like a goza. So,
yes, yes.
For me, that flavor profile, that occasion after a big ride, and I don't know, to be honest, I got to sharpen my pencil on it a little bit, but, for me, gozas are a little bit too sweet. We didn't want to have any sugar in the beer.
Gotcha.
A lot of athletes will kind of swear off sugar during their kind of training regimes if you're going for a marathon or an Ironman. Yeah, for me, it was a flavor profile thing.
Flavor profile. Okay. So then the other thing I know, so there's I don't think it's on this can, but there's like a cool saying or like a tagline on the new can about hydration.
Yep.
What
so we got it here.
There you go. Hydration's on the horizon, right? So I was curious as far as like the beer. From my understanding, beer is, or whatever the alcohol is, a diuretic, makes you piss, therefore it doesn't necessarily hydrate. I think you kind of answered this question with the salt thing, but I wanted to just be curious as far as the hydration element that you're mentioning. Is that mostly surrounded about the salt, or where does that sort of come from?
Yeah, that's because of the electrolytes. So electrolytes allow your body to absorb the liquid in there and the water, I guess, and the hydration aspects of a beer. Right. Alcohol for sure is a diuretic. You're drinking, 40% strength, spirits, but this is a beer. As long as it's drank in moderation, I do believe even a traditional beer, one of them, you get a quenching kind of hydration effect from it. Yeah. And there's a lot of data that will go either way. Okay. Marathon runners that swear by it. Studies that don't, we're not going to run a clinical study. That's not our intention. Our intention is to make a fun and get people outside, inspire them to go on a sick adventure.
And we're not we you know, I think a lot of this stuff gets really blown out of context where, you know, a brand like us come out with an innovative product like our golden ale, and you know, people just jump to the conclusion that okay, these guys are just telling people just to strictly drink beer and you'll be hydrated. No,
Right.
we're not idiots. We don't do that. We set out to create a fun brand, as Al said, you know, be that platform to people for people to celebrate their wins and really create that occasion. I mean, when we set out, you know, our goal was, you know, pre-COVID was to be that, you know, that social lubricant at the end of races, at the end of rides, at the end of all of those, you know, fun activities that seem so foreign to us now, and just have some sort of, you know, functional component, be it electrolytes, that gives you that added benefit whilst you're having a beer versus just emptiness from a normal beer, if you will.
Gotcha. Okay, so that makes sense. When I was, you know, early today, I was like, oh, I should probably like look into this a little bit, so I'm not completely like I still don't know shit about it. But I saw a couple articles that were talking about it, and I felt that some of the way that the writers came off, they were a little like, they were kind of like, what's the word? They're just like doubting it, like as if it was actually a thing. And then there was one that I read that had an interview with a scientist or somebody, someone who supposedly was an expert that was saying they doubted that it was actually a thing. So I was curious to see what you guys had to say about, and this was in like the, I think it was the Toronto Star, if I'm not mistaken. And I was like, oh, okay. So this was news to me that people were doubting the legitimacy of a functional beer, even though, like you guys said, there was those ones that Sierra Nevada bought. Like, you know, you guys aren't the first, you're first in Canada, but you know, it's existed. Obviously, if Sierra Nevada bought someone, there's got to be something to it, and the fact that it seems to be a growing sort of subgenre or, you know, subset of beer. Any sort of, for people who I guess I'm only mentioning this just to be like, give you guys an opportunity for anybody who would be like, oh, come on, does it really like hydrate you, or like, you know,
yeah,
any sort of anything you'd have to say to people who maybe be just questioning it?
Yeah, I mean, for me right away, like I think it's natural that there would be, you know, big newspaper media publications are going to doubt it. I think they're coming from a lens of distrust of big corporate beer. And so there's definitely always a risk that big corporate comes in and they just kind of tell a marketing story, and that whole idea that we're being sold snake oil and all that kind of stuff. I think that's very real, and that's a very real kind of issue. And there's definitely a world where big corporate comes into the nutritional world and they don't tell you what's in the beer, or they mess up the, you know, NFTs on all kinds of, you know, thousands and thousands of products that are lining grocery store shelves. You know, I've got a natural distrust to that as well. So if potato chip companies started saying, you know, Miss Vicky's with electrolytes, I'm probably going to get my, you know, spidey senses tingling. So for us, you know, we're a small company. We're founded by athletes. We've tested it. You know, you'll also find equally as many articles. I would say it's pretty balanced. People saying that it's real, it works. You know, Olympians drinking it, Ironman athletes drinking it, and then there's people that are having some natural distrust to it. I think that's normal. I think that's something that we're comfortable with, and you know, but we're not that corporate behemoth. We're an extremely small company, testing every batch. You know, kind of working with it hand in hand and putting it in hands of athletes. And you know, we're not encouraging people to. This isn't their new party beer. It's, you know, really truly tailored to that occasion of, you know, have it at the finish line or after the big ride this weekend.
Gotcha.
And really it goes back to that conversation of, you know, if you are going to be reaching for a beer after that occasion, why not be a beer that does have some sort of, you know, healthier aspect to it, whether, you know, and in this case being salt and blackcurrant with the electrolytes. So, you know, by no means are we trying to argue science, but, you know, I think a lot of things get taken out of context. And that's fine. I mean, you know, for us in startup, any news is good news. And we feel very confident with our product and our brand and our story to be able to, you know, defend it if we need to, and be able to, you know, continue to build the great community that we've built so far.
Love it. I guess you're right, man. Like it's like any publicity is good publicity. If they're talking about it and then people see it, like, let's see what this is about. So at the very least, it'll bring some awareness, right? So it's never a bad thing. Is it more good? Like, and to your point, Alan, that yes, there was like pretty much equal, coverage. It was just more. I was surprised by the negativity, because I was introduced to this super positively by Craig from Craft Brand Co., who was like raving about it, and then I tried it, and I think I still didn't really know what it was when I first tried it, and I was like, oh shit, okay, and then he put us in touch, and I was like, as soon as I tried it, he's like, I'm like, hell yeah, I want to talk to these guys. Like, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
So I was coming at it from like a complete just, oh wow, this is new, this is fun, and I'm far from an athlete, but like I like the concept of just something innovative and fun in beer, so I was all for it. And then if I'm seeing something negative, I was like, what's up with that? Like I just thought it was strange. Is it more positive than negative what you guys are mostly hearing? I'd be just curious.
I would say like overwhelmingly positive. And going into this journey, I think there was a before launch, it was like, I don't know if like people are going to be stoked on this or if they're going to be questioning it, heavily from the beginning. And
right.
I mean, I've not had a single kind of athlete or somebody that's a beer drinker come at it from any place but of a place of, oh, I love this for kind of after the session. And
I think it's it being such a unique product, it's allowed us to then be able to talk to our community more about our story and what we are trying to do as a brand, as a whole, of Rally. And we intentionally went really hard, on our pilot brews and some of our test products on, really top tier triathletes and Ironman athletes and, these types of people that probably would be the first ones to be like, all right, guys, like fine, but, kind of not give us any validation. And, the response was overwhelmingly positive. But, there is always going to be, the other side of the coin. And that's fine. And we, again, like we're any press is good press. But it just allows us to have another platform to continue to tell our story and our journey as a brand as we continue to navigate this.
Love it. No, that's great, man. Like on that note, should we get to your next beer?
Sure.
I'm keen. I have not tried this. I held off because I wanted to drink it with you guys first. Do you mind grabbing?
Oh, nice.
Thank you so much. So this was this was from when Alan, you and I spoke. Hey.
First taste, Craig.
First taste. I'm excited, man. I think you were telling me when we first spoke that this is the new batch. It was kind of like tweaked for this for this one. Thank you so much. And this is your extra mild low-cal IPA.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
there you go.
Look at that. Look at him in the new can, looking gorgeous. Oh, it's got the nutritional facts in this. Only 99 calories? Shit.
Yeah, so that was what we were going for with this beer is, there's an element that, as brand owners and even as drinkers and athletes, I was missing that kind of hop flavor from the IPA that was sort of my drink of yesteryear.
Let's
great. Back into it. Really proud of the can. We still incorporated like kind of our topographic lines.
This is great.
Speak of all of our kind of Strava users and kind of outdoors people.
Love it. What are the hops in this one?
So we brew with this mainly Citra with Centennial hops as well.
Citra Centennial. That's a good combo. Good solid combo.
Yeah, so we experimented. We did this brew. Craig, the concept for the beer was that we wanted, we had a lot of success with our flagship beer, especially amongst athletes.
Okay.
Generally, I would say early days, more the harder core athletes. So people that are doing Ironmans, people that are doing marathons, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And we realized that there was a whole world of people out there that, that was aspirational, Yeah, I dream of doing a marathon one day or of doing an Ironman, but maybe they're not quite there yet. I think there was also an element of, being locked down, drinking a few too many golden ales, getting a bit of a beer belly myself. But just getting the feedback that, and I actually started to crave, man, I need a lower calorie option. This is still a full calorie beer. This is like our flagship beer is 200 calories for
200.
context.
Okay.
It was 473 mils, but still significantly more, caloric than this beer. And so this was kind of paramount to our brand of being inclusive to everyone. So the idea that we had a beer for everyone, someone who's maybe earlier on in their fitness journey.
I like that. First of all, I need to sip this. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Nice. So it's 3.5%. It's got a really nice mouthfeel, nice and dry, dusty. The tropical hops are definitely coming through heavy on the nose. I'm getting a little bit more touch a little maybe earthiness, at least on the first sip. Obviously, I'm adjusting from two different styles, but I'm getting a little, maybe that's from the Centennial. Yeah, super easy drink, but plenty of flavor, more flavor than it should have for 3.5, which is great.
Yeah. So the whole goal here was to have like that full packed with flavor.
Yeah.
We love the citrus, that citrusy taste, especially in the summer. You can imagine, being just out, on a hot day, and this is sort of that super crushable, easy drinking.
Incredible.
But still kind of a bit of a nod to an IPA, even though it is, lighter on the calorie front and, a little bit lighter on the alcohol front too.
Definitely. No, I'm totally picturing like, even just like a park hang. So it's not, you're not just shoving tons of calories in your face here, Yeah. I know you guys aren't allowed to be in a park anymore, God damn it. But, for now we can.
Solo, alone I can go to the park.
Oh, you are? I thought they said something about like, if you see a park bench, don't you have to be moving or something. Wasn't there something ridiculous like that?
They've caution taped a lot of benches, but outdoor exercise has always been allowed. So that is still allowed. If they don't want you to go 20 of your running, buddies and the whole club, but they do encourage you to get outside, and as would I, got to stay sane somehow.
Oh, it's wild. No, this is perfect. So is this one a functional, because I was looking at this earlier and I wasn't sure, aside from any salt component, which I didn't specifically see as an additional thing, even though it does say it's got 60 milligrams of sodium, but was there, would you consider this one a functional beer in the same way that you consider the Golden Ale, or is this a little bit different?
Yeah, so it's got some sodium in it for sure, but we're not really telling that same electrolyte functional story with it. For this, the functional story is that it's low in calories and it's lower in alcohol.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the main story we're telling with this beer.
Okay. So
more accessible, and we wanted to hit some of those classic flavor profiles that we missed as well.
No, it's certainly hitting that. I love that. It's also because I was sort of visualizing when you mentioned like you chuck some of these in your Camelback if you're going for a ride or a run or whatever. This is a little, a little easier, a little lighter to have on you as well. You have a few more of these in that bad boy, and sling them around. Less waste to bring back as well, which is super cool. Is this one out now? Is this obviously the Golden Ale's been out for a bit? When what's the deal with this one?
Yeah, so we actually just launched this beer this week. So it's pretty timely that we're talking to you today.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, we've been in the works with this one for a little bit now. It kind of came pretty hot off the heels after we launched the Golden Ale. Alan and I were kind of sitting around figuring out, okay, what's going to be next, and we decided on this style of beer. But to answer your question, right now we are only in the beer store in Ontario. Okay. So we're in about 30 stores across Ontario. And then we are slowly starting to, get some access to grocery and hopefully LCBO down the line.
I know that's a whole thing. LCBO really don't make it easy, eh?
Yeah, for sure. They say the second SKU is the hardest one for you to get in there. And we've only been on shelf with our flagship for 8 months. So kind of the feedback we're getting is they generally want to see a year of data and prove yourself for a year kind of thing, and then they'll start looking at a second. Okay. But I think it bolsters our ability to add the second one potentially sooner, especially if we get some sales data, at the beer store and at grocery.
From that, love it. No, that's great. So people will be able to get it from the beer store, at least for now. So just check the beer store website or app or whatever and search for it. It's probably the best bet.
For sure.
Yep.
And, we got a few bars and restaurants that have picked it up. It's kind of like same story as this winter. Like we got all the ski clubs to carry our golden ale, and then lockdown happens and they're shut, and then they're open again. And so it's been a bit of an uphill battle, but we're getting the beer out at, some of these fun bottle shops that are on bike trails. We've been working on some even events that we're going to run. We got down the line. We had an amazing property on this across the street from the mountain bike trailhead up here. And anyways, now it's a few question marks, new question marks even after today's announcement. But
yeah.
Anyways, one of these days we'll get it done.
Right. It's just going to be a matter of like time, I guess. I was going to ask as well, like, what has been that you guys are contracting and that you're also quite new. I mean, imagine you launched during a pandemic. Is that accurate?
Right in the middle of it, man.
Right in the middle.
Always pandemic.
And how has that been for you guys? Because you being, that you're contracting, there's totally different challenges for you guys.
Yeah.
How's it been?
Yeah. So I mean, there's been a lot of Google Hangouts, a lot of like video chat, like this kind of thing with the brewery. When we weren't allowed to go in. Certainly, the contract brewery can't afford an outbreak. A lot of brands depending on them to not close. But the biggest one for us is just we haven't been able to get the amount of sampling and trial and brand awareness that we would have gotten otherwise. So we had lined up some of our favorite bike races. We would have been at the finish line, pouring beers, telling the story, letting people know that we're in the community. I think that's a big part of it too, especially for people that are, in these cycling and outdoor communities. They're, happier to support and kind of vote with their dollars, a company like ours maybe than maybe a big corporate multinational. I think that's another part of a story that we've missed telling you guys about is that, for one, we're 1% for the planet since day one. We've been committed to, making strides in how we, better our environment and try to leave it in a little bit better place for the next generation. And we've also kind of cordoned off another section of business that we call Rally for Good. So, pretty much every event, and every month we do a focused initiative to spotlight a charity and do something for good and try to use this platform to shine a light on, raise awareness and raise real, funds for, environmental health and well-being, as well as community building charities.
That's dope. So even, during all this, you still found a way to make sure you're giving back.
Yeah.
Pretty scrappily. Yeah. Like we did this one trail cleanup with an awesome, group of people called Don't Mess with the Dawn, and anyone that's listening in Ontario or Toronto, they've been a force to reckon with it, and a huge part of helping clean up the trail system there that is used by so many people, and just unfortunately, where it is located and its sort of surroundings, just, it's completely littered with garbage. But on one of the trail cleanups that we did, we had to hop a fence and cross a railroad to where all these tires were laying that we needed to clear. And, some, mountain biker on a really fancy bike thought he was doing the world good by calling the cops on us. He didn't really see what we were doing. Anyways, the cops came and ended up helping, remove the tires and, gave us kudos for, helping, move trash from this trail system that's kind of getting neglected. So we've been trying to do our best, as well as, keeping the public and ourselves safe of obviously what's going on. But if this pandemic's taught us one thing, it's taught us to be very scrappy and to be creative and to think outside of the box in terms of how to drive awareness and, just awareness to our brand.
Right. I mean, like, there's no better challenge, really. Like, you're back against the wall, you got to figure it out. So, prior to COVID, Alan and I had our spring, summer, fall kind of sketched out, and we were going to kind of divide and conquer. And Al kind of touched on it
earlier, but go very much like how Cliff Bar built their story. Go very grassroots, and we're going to latch on to all of these amazing grassroots events that happen all over Ontario every year that probably go unnoticed just because they're just not crazy mainstream. But get in with a lot of those communities, get that face-to-face trial, sampling, get feedback, and just that way. But that didn't happen, so we had to resort to kind of just doing our own thing. And so far it's been a really good challenge. And I guess we'll just kind of continue to do that until we're allowed to do other things.
Okay, I love that. I think that's really smart though. Just with any business, like niching, and you guys are incredibly niched in multiple ways with both the types of beer and the intention behind it, and then the communities you're trying to target. I imagine there's not too many, breweries going straight for those, wanting to put it in the hands of someone who just finished a bike race and stuff. So it makes complete sense that you go straight for those. I would imagine that those type of events would be more likely to happen this summer than not, being that they're outdoors and you're not like spitting in each other's faces type of thing.
Last week I was more confident than today. The news a little bit fresh today, but I think you're right. And some of our advisors too who come from the beer industry, this is a terrible time to start a beverage brand. You can't do sampling, tastings, all that stuff's unavailable. I don't know if those levers work, but it's been a little bit just different. But like some of my favorite things have come from it. Like when we hit a Yeti cooler in the woods, give the GPS coordinates kind of thing to a trail running group, and then they were able to, on their virtual run, grab a beer on their own, take a selfie kind of thing. So we got to do some really kind of fun, cool trial events that I think I'd love to reenact post-COVID, make them, a little bit more fun, maybe a little bit more social, but still incorporate some of these things that we've, all come to now know as, I guess, this new normal, even though I hate that saying.
It's annoying.
Just as a new fun thing that, we had to do this because of COVID, but now it's part of, rides, and we've got some beers on dry ice. They're cold. They're out in the middle of the woods there. Like, go for it.
Right.
Love to incorporate some really fun, wacky stuff like that too, to some of our activations.
That's key. No, I think that's really smart, man. I like that a lot. I think that's just like a great way to, I like the idea even of taking what you guys had to do, were forced to do during COVID, and then, sometimes like even this, we were forced to do this, like the podcast virtually. And I kind of like it now because what if I wasn't going to Toronto for a while, then I couldn't sit down with you or whatever. So now there's ways around it all, and I've been able to expand more. So I feel like before COVID, you couldn't pay me to do a Skype podcast. People had asked, I'm like, no chance. Like the whole thing about it was sitting next to you boys, we look each other in the eye and we have a beer and we hear the story and blah, blah, blah. It's a whole part of the experience, but I see the value in this now, and it sounds like, you guys have been able to be creative and come up with other ideas, and then you'd be post-COVID, you'd be like, well, that was kind of sick. Let's just take that and tweak it a little bit. But I love that, because it's not, obviously this isn't a positive time for anybody or anything, but you're making it into a positive and taking some of the, the good things that happen and being able to run with it. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. And there's been some other positives, I think, like, participation in outdoor sports is way up. I don't know if you've tried to buy a bike lately, but
you can't get one.
More people are on the trails, more people are running than ever. They're out of the gyms, they're into the wild. For good or bad, like the cross-country ski trailheads were packed this winter. Still safe because people parked, and then within 5 minutes you're in the trail network and you're, very much so on your own. But, so the interest is there in this kind of outdoor adventure world. And now the challenge is just kind of getting in front of those people. Obviously, hopefully we can do that in person because I think everybody's missing that social interaction.
Yeah.
So we're excited to give a more experiential kind of vibe, hopefully soon.
I love it. Hopefully sooner than later. So then,
Yeah.
what's coming up next for you guys? I mean, you mentioned earlier you're starting to work on the non-alcoholic product, which is super smart and super cool because that makes sure everybody, whether you're a drinker or not, or even if you just don't want a beer after, you want a beer flavored water or something like. What other products that you can talk about now that are you guys working on?
I mean, the non-alc definitely is something that we feel very passionate about. We actually we drink quite a bit non-alcoholic beer when we're not drinking our own. It's probably just a smart thing to do. But we just feel it's a really exciting category. It's a totally different retail experience. It's a totally different sales channel for us. It's a totally different consumer group. There's obviously a lot of noise. There's a lot of people that are jumping on that train right now. But we've got a couple of ideas to make it unique, like we've done with our two beers now. I see that there's a question coming up. I don't know if I'm supposed to answer that or not.
Absolutely, go for it.
We've probably been talking about a seltzer more often recently. It was kind of something that wasn't really on our radar when we first started. It's not anything that's immediate, but it's something that's definitely starting to gain a little bit more traction within our daily meetings and conversations about what's next, and then kind of just looking at some other seasonal products that we think would really do well in the community for our communities, and to help us also, continue to grow ours.
Okay. I mean, I didn't even know if because Beer and a Buzz, I was just asking, do you consider functional seltzers might have been easier to market? I don't know if a functional seltzer is that even a thing?
Well, there's one company that is claiming an electrolytes in the seltzer. I will say that one thing that was like, at least early on, was kind of like one of our pillars, is that there's something about beer as a beverage where it's cultural, that at a finish line of 1,000-person race, I think it's a beer that you want to toast with your fellow kind of compadres there than a seltzer.
Yeah.
That's maybe a me thing. I'm not sure, but there's something about beer, its history, how long it's been around. There's something special about that beverage beyond, the exact ingredients and makeup of it and whatnot. I think the idea of, hey, let's meet for a beer, one beer could change your life kind of thing, depending how that beer goes. I am now getting more excited about seltzers, but also, early days, we didn't have any capital to go launch at the beer store even, and the LCBO doesn't work with seltzers.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a whole host of reasons that push us into beer, but the most important one being that we're most excited about being part of innovating this kind of very, almost like a sacred cultural icon of a beverage. But yeah, like electrolytes in a seltzer sounds like it would be, it could be killer for sure.
Yeah.
Would love to do that. I would say for us right now, we want to run with our portfolio, get the non-alcoholic out. We've got to, get the business humming and learn how to get, cans are hard to get a hold of right now and all the supply chain stuff.
Yeah.
But, definitely innovating at the kind of seasonal level for sure. And, start to do one of those, each season is a big goal of ours.
Okay. So there's a bunch of stuff on the horizon with the non-alc likely to be the next one, and, many more functional products to come.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah,
I love it, boys.
And also, Craig, like we've also talked about doing, this rally cafe. We kind of call it in internally, at least, call that a working title. But the idea of having, probably something a little bit amped up from my homebrew setup, but bring it into, physical space where we can do way more experimental brewing, in-house ourselves, control it. That's definitely a dream of ours. COVID has definitely pushed it back further than we wanted, because we thought this was going to be over a long time ago, I think, back when we started. But, that's a big goal of ours too, is to incorporate, probably some sort of clubhouse kind of space, start and a ride kind of thing. And hopefully incorporate some of this more experimental brewing there, where we can run smaller batches and bring in athletes that want to experiment with something that they've added to their nutrition program.
Hmm.
And I think that's how we'll stay on the bleeding edge of functional beers.
I love that, like collaborating with the athletes too, like just doing collabs and coming up with just crazy things that maybe people hadn't tried before. And I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's probably a stepping stone for us to then, think about maybe getting into the actual, brewing manufacturing business. I think that a lot of people, when they think about craft beer, they really think you got to own the whole bricks and mortars. But there's a tremendous amount of different skill sets required to run a successful beer business. And so, I think the Rally Cafe do bring the experimental brewing in would be a really nice stepping stone.
I love it. No, it makes sense. It's the next logical step. And, it definitely feels on brand for everything you guys are doing. I love it. And, hopefully all this crap will be over sooner than later and you can, move into it. Though at the same token, there hasn't, I've heard numerous success stories of obviously you guys, but like of bricks and mortar breweries that have opened mid-pandemic and killing the game. So I don't think it's impossible. I just, for people who don't know, today Ontario shut the provincial borders on both sides and lockdown, and the cops have increased powers and all this shit is pretty wild. Like, who knows? This is the biggest change that we've had, and it's been a year of constant uncertainty for everybody, whether it's business owners or just human beings trying to operate in this world and know what the fuck we can do and not do. But
for sure,
hey man, you never know. The fact, first, congrats to you guys for opening during all of this and getting products out in the market and really creating a unique, engaging, interesting brand that's hitting in a market that was never really served before, at least up here. So congrats for that. It's awesome. It seems like there's only big things to come. It's fantastic. I can just see right here, Beer and a Bozo saying the same thing. Cool as fuck, hoping for big things for you boys.
Right on. Thanks, Beer and a Bozo. Can't wait to get him out to one of the events here.
Yeah, he's in Ontario as well. So
right on.
He definitely if he wants to try your stuff and anyone else in Ontario, the best bet for the new beer, the Extra Mile, is Beer Store, but the Golden Ale, you can get that in LCBOs.
LCBO, Longos, and growing in kind of that coastal channel. I
love it. Just remember now, I got to do a thumbnail. So, do you guys want to hold up a little beer? I'm going to take a screenshot.
Sure.
You need to hold up this damn product. Let them know. Oh yeah, there we go. I am not. Why can't I hold this right? Like, I haven't done this before. All right, ready? Oh, that is just gorgeous. Look at that. Stunning. Boys, really appreciate your time. Where can everybody find Rally online?
Yeah, so follow us on Instagram at Rally Beer Co. That's where we're kind of most active right now. Otherwise, you can check us out at drinkrally.ca. Sign up for our newsletter. That's where we kind of give the most insider access to things. And stay in touch with us.
I love it. Stick around. I'm going to wrap this up. Stick around at the end. I'll just we'll wrap up after. But boys, thank you both for your time. I really appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing. You're great dudes. I wish you much success. I'm excited to continue to follow the journey, and we definitely have to do this again. We got a few more products up, and we'll show the evolution of the business. I love doing that, like the follow-ups and stuff. It's fascinating. So we'll definitely keep in touch.
Awesome, man. Really, really stoked. Thank you so much for having us.
Genuine pleasure. Guys, thank you again. Everyone, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you know when the new episodes drop. Follow us on social media at BAOS Podcast, and check out the long-form audio so you can hear attractive gentlemen like Alan and Spencer talk about craft beer. We'll be back next Thursday, I think, at 9 p.m. Check Instagram stories. Who even knows anymore? See you guys next time. Peace.